in law enforcement with the state, and how would a political science major go that route today?
I should stand up and be. Can you all hear me? Since I was a kid, I wanted to be a cop. And a lot of you in this room probably don't remember an old show called The FBI. Some of you remember Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. and his band of really nice dressed guys went out and caught bad guys on Sunday nights. And I was glued to the TV watching it, and I said, you know, I'm going to do that. I want to go out and I want to make a difference. And for me, making the difference was putting bad guys in jail so they wouldn't hurt other people. So throughout junior high and high school, I read everything I could about law enforcement, and I wanted to go specifically to the FBI, and it didn't work out that way. But when I came to Cal State, and I was intent on going to law school, and political science had that pre-law program, and so I thought this is a great degree for me to go into because I would have a great understanding of the political process, the legislative process, the executive, the judicial process, and I'm going to be out there enforcing the laws that are derived from these separate processes. And so, wanting to have a great understanding of government in general. And so, while I was here at Cal State, I met some folks that worked in state law enforcement, took the exams, and while I was finishing up my MPA in 1981, in October of 81, I started my career with the state of California. I started working alcohol and vice violations, and then later on went to the fraud division, working high-end, multi-million-dollar criminal conspiracies and fraud cases. Now today, if I wanted to get hired by my own agency, I couldn't, because you have to have a degree in administration of justice. So many of you are probably in that concentration now. However, back then I had just enough units in the criminal justice program that I had taken that I was able to qualify for the exam. But what I did find is this, that as I rose through the ranks into a command level, the knowledge that I gained through going through the political science and the public administration program became invaluable to me when dealing with things like unions, employer relations, budgeting, and just dealing with just people and understanding the processes that went along. Because when you're dealing with legislators on bills that you're writing or supporting or not supporting, and having an understanding of that whole political process, what a great deal it was to reflect back on my time here at Cal State Fullerton, some of the courses that I had. For those of you today, and I think the second part of the question was how can that help somebody today? If you decide to go into law enforcement, one I highly recommend it. I guess it's because I had 28 years in the field and it's the greatest job that I could ever imagine to have. So I think the way the program is structured now with the criminal justice program embedded with the public administration and the political science program is a great thing. So I think you're doing a very good thing for yourself educationally by looking at a degree in political science or criminal justice, and it'll serve you very well because most agencies now are looking for individuals that have college degrees. To become a cop in California, all you need is a high school diploma, and of course be 21, and of course not be a criminal and meet other parameters. But educationally, it's still just a high school diploma. Police departments, sheriff's departments, state law enforcement, of course, are now looking for those individuals that have taken that time to advance themselves educationally. And so keep up with your studies, and what you're doing in this particular field I think is going to help you tremendously when you go for your job interviews.
I think there's one thread that everyone should be thinking about, and you can find from all of our panelists. They're passionate, and think about what you're passionate about, and I think that you'll be able to find a lot more success if you focus in that area. Next, I'd like to ask Linda. Linda, you probably took one of the more traditional routes for a political science major and are a successful attorney. What advice would you have for our students who are looking for the same career path?
Linda Bauermeister, nice to be here. You're coming out at a significantly different time than I was. There were jobs that were plentiful. And that's not to say that you can't find jobs, but you're going to need to think out of the box. And for some of you, create your own jobs. And for some of those, you may work for a couple different law firms, or I would strongly suggest you go into, if not one, multiple internship programs, both before you go to law school and during law school. I only did one internship program, and that was in my sophomore year. There was a gentleman who was a district attorney who taught a trial advocacy class for criminal justice side. And what we did is we went into the DA's office and we were given felony preliminary hearings and municipal court cases to try. It was really the most invaluable opportunity I ever had. It was very competitive. And my first year at Loyola, I had been in the top 10. Everybody has to do moot court. And I made it onto the board. So that really helped for my sophomore year, getting me into this trial advocacy class. And without that class, you couldn't do this internship. You might be able to be at the district attorney's office, but you would never get in a courtroom. And it was just such a valuable opportunity. And I think for all of you, there are going to be jobs in the legal field. But I think you need to be very selective about what law school you go to. There are going to be so many attorneys out there, and there were a lot of layoffs in the last couple of years in certain fields. But there are also newer fields that are opening up that weren't around when I certainly started at Loyola. I graduated from here in 1980, and I graduated from Loyola in 1983. And the DA's office had wanted me to stay with them, and I realized I had also worked at some civil law firms. I really liked courtroom work, but I really didn't like, not my clientele, but what I was dealing with every day at the DA's office. The last few months I was there, I was put into child sex crimes, and I have never had a worse job in my life. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't think of anything about but these children. And it, again, was a mind-opening opportunity, but it wasn't something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And so, having been able to also clerk at civil law firms, I went and worked at another firm from 83 to 89, and the entire time I was there, I went out and marketed and brought my own business in. And in my mind, I kept thinking, I could run this firm as well as these people can. And so that's what I did. When my daughter was 6 months old, I left and I started my own law firm and never looked back. That's an opportunity anybody can take, and I think what your class and your group coming out in 2011, 2012 needs to think, because you need to think out of the box, but to a certain extent, you've been trained to do that with MTV and the way you've been raised from the beginning. Continue thinking that way. Create your own jobs, take the opportunities, work for law firms, work for reputable attorneys and learn what they have, and then decide what you want to do, what you want to make of your life. Don't get stuck in the typical law firm box if that is not what you want. Your life is yours. The average work life right now is 45 years. It's probably going to be longer for all of you because you won't be retiring at the same rates and ages that the rest of us will be able to do. So your work life expectancy may be 50 years. Pick something you really enjoy and love if you're going to be doing it for 50 years. Don't settle for less. There's nothing worse than talking to somebody who's been in a job for 30 or 40 years and they drag themselves out every day and don't enjoy it. You deserve better than that. But you may be in a position where you need to create your own job and something that satisfies you, and don't look just at the money. Take some jobs that are for the experience, because the experience is worth so much. And some of the experiences you'll get at some of these firms, or if you decide to work at some of the pro bono locations, there's lots of them. You can learn so much about yourself and what you really want in life. You want more than just a